What's going on, guys? It's Pete Nova from the Face Off Sports Network. Today, I am back for my week 2 defensive streamers to target to help you win your fantasy football matchups. We were pretty successful last week. We identified the New Orleans Saints as a defense to target. They ended up finishing the week fourth in total points, and they were only 30% rostered across fantasy formats. Today, I'm going to give you 3 defenses that I am targeting, as well as an honorable mention. I do want to point out, though, that when I am targeting defenses to stream, I look for 2 things. One, a home team, and then 2, a low implied point total for Vegas. If I can get both of those things, I'm generally pretty happy, but I usually want to get at least one, unless there's certain circumstances where it's like a rookie quarterback, or something else that's leading me to picking up that specific defense. But a good general rule of thumb is at least having one of those 2. But without further ado, I want to get into my first team. It's going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars, who take on the Cleveland Browns at home with a pretty low implied point total. It's 41.5 on the week, and they're 2% owned across fantasy formats. This is a defense that, maybe had some secondary question marks with a lot of changes this offseason. And they take on a Browns team who, really struggled this week against the Dallas Cowboys. They had 2 interceptions and 6 sacks allowed to the Cowboys. And that offensive line, it is banged up right now. Jack Conklin did not play. And they also were missing a couple of other guys across the offensive line. This is at home, so we do like that, and it is a low point total. But this is Jaguars defense that, played the Miami Dolphins really tough this week. They were able to get 3 sacks and hold the Dolphins to 7 points until later on in the game. And then ultimately they wound up losing the football game. But Deshaun Watson last week in week 1 was pressured 3rd highest in the NFL for quarterbacks. And this is a Jaguars defense, like I said, that was able to get to the quarterback last week. I expect that to be the case this week. And Watson was sacked 6 times and threw 2 interceptions. So I'm not sure they're going to right the ship this week with another tough opponent with the Jaguars. And that's why I am going to target them as one of my defenses that I want to pick up on the waiver wire this week. My second defense is going to be the Seattle Seahawks, who are taking on the New England Patriots. Now, this is another low point total. It's projected 38 points. Seattle is a little bit more heavily rostered, about 54% across fantasy formats. So they may not be available on your waiver wire, but I would still make sure you're taking a look. Last week, they did play rookie Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos. They were able to force 2 interceptions. They got 2 fumbles forced, and they were able to get 2 sacks on the day. The other thing to keep note is this New England Patriots offense is going to look to run the football, and Jacoby Brissett's probably going to play off the play action. But really, they're going to probably lean on the run game. And the Seattle defense was able to limit Denver to under 100 yards rushing in week 1. McDonald, the new head coach, is a defensive-minded coach coming over from Baltimore. And they looked ready to go last week. I expect him to have them ready to go this week as well. And the difference is the Bengals were missing some pieces on offense, and Jamar Chase, was not completely full go. And so that led to, some miscues on their side and played into the game script of the New England Patriots. I do think the Seattle offense could play better than the Bengals did last week, which could require the Patriots to go off script and have to throw the football a little bit more than they want. Last week, the New England Patriots offensive line was a little bit shaky too. Brissett was in the top 3 for quarterbacks pressured on the week, and the Seattle defense is much better than Cincinnati's. I did give out Cincinnati as a defense to look at last week, just off the sheer fact alone that the Pats offensive line is pretty weak. And that was the case, but they weren't as great from a fantasy football output on Cincinnati's side. Obviously, we know how that game went, but they did get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And I do think Seattle can do the same. And so I really like them as a defense to target this week. They are away, but we do get the low point total. 38 points is very low for an NFL game to be projected at. And so I like the Seattle defense, and I would be targeting them as a possibility for this week. My third defense that I am targeting is going to be the Chargers taking on the Carolina Panthers. Now, this is another away team, but the point total is only 39, so just one more point than the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks game. This defense is 8% rostered across fantasy formats. Harbaugh, the new coach, defensive-minded guy, and this defense looked really good last week. They were able to get 4 sacks against the Raiders. I'm not sure, if they're going to go ahead and completely replicate that. But the Raiders are pretty similar in terms of overall skill set as the Panthers. And Bryce Young is manning this offense. And last week, he was sacked 4 times as well, which is the same amount of sacks that the Chargers had last week. Bryce Young was also sacked 3.8 times per game in 2023. So that trend continued at least from last year to this year. It's only been 1 week, small sample size. But they were held to under 300 total yards of offense as well. And this Carolina Panthers, offense, until we see it get going, it might be rough for them this season. And I also failed to mention that the Chargers did get an interception last week. Bryce Young had 2 interceptions last week as well. So I would look to the Chargers as also another possibility on your waiver wire pickups this week. I actually, if I was going to slot which defenses I prefer in order, it would be the Chargers first. Second would be the Jaguars. Third would be the Seattle Seahawks. And then I do have an honorable mention as a fourth defense if all else fails. I would look to roster the Indianapolis Colts, who are taking on the Panthers. And it looks like Malik Willis, the young quarterback that was drafted out of Tennessee, is probably going to get the start. I don't think we've got any word on that, but Jordan Love is definitely out, at least for the next few weeks. Whether it's Willis or it's Michael Pratt, the rookie quarterback, I believe it's probably going to be Willis, but we will see. But it's still some defense to monitor and potentially target if all 3 of the defenses mentioned in the video are not available. But that's really going to do it for me, guys. Hopefully we can have another good week like we did last week, projecting the Saints as a defense to pick up. But if you have any questions, feel free to drop them below. I'd be happy to answer them for you. And, fingers crossed, and we'll see you next time.